Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining this today's webinar covering geometry, meshing, and morphing. Just to give you an overview of what we've been addressing for this particular release, it's been fully focused on panel migrations as well as performance. So what we're going to cover through in the following presentation will all be either panel migrations or performance fixes. We're trying to address a lot of from a performance point of view, a lot of the pain points that we're getting regular feedback on. So this should be hopefully quite a good session for everybody. On that, I'm going to hand over to Pritam to go through the panel removal items for geometry.
So thank you, Tim, for the introduction, and let me start on the geometry side, what we have accomplished in .3. I have also tried to capture the panel items visibly here by taking some screenshots. These are, some of the items that we have added in .3. As far as creating nodes is concerned, we used to have system as a reference system that we can select for creation of the nodes. As you can see from this GIF file, that all these methods have been added while creating node. So you can drag and create mid nodes, which was there. You can double click and edit the coordinates, but you can see in the coordinate dialog box that we have something as a system collector that you can actually select a system, and with respect to that system, now the XYZ locations will be changed. So that we have added as a new functionality. Also from the temp nodes panel, we have added a marking of the structural nodes. So if you want to select some structural nodes and you want to just create a temp node on it, what we do here is that we don't really create a duplicate node here. What we used to happen before, we just kind of show that node as a temp node. It is still a structural node. It's basically visualization of a structural node is what you can call it. And in this particular micro dialog, you can select all the nodes, and then either you can mark them or you can clear them with the delete icon. So what we used to have as a clear all option that we have added here. The other functionalities from the nodes panel is interpolation of the nodes on the between the nodes, the lines and surfaces. Here you can see that on the left we have also a location selector that we added in addition to the node. So if you don't have existing nodes, you can use a location selector, and all the biasing styles and the intensity has been added as a micro dialog option. So it is very easy for the users to just select the style, enter number of nodes and enter the bias intensity. So based on the bias intensity is how it will affect the linear distribution or exponential and so on. Here in the GIF files, I'm showing how you can interpolate nodes between the line and a node. So you still need a nodal input when you select on line. So you can see on the left, we are selecting line, and then we are selecting two nodes between which the nodes will be created. And on the right hand side, you can see the interpolation of the nodes on surfaces. So you can select a surface, you can select a nodes on the surfaces, and then it will create the interpolation of the nodes based on the bias style and intensity. The other option from the nodes panel that we added is the extracting of the nodes in the parametric way. So you can see that on the guide bars, we provide the upper and bounds for U and V, upper and lower bounds. And then we have selectors where you can select a line or a surface, and based on that, we create nodes parametrically. The addition here is on the left, you can see that we still can create a, so we kept the normal micro dialog where you can still split the nodes, or you can kind of split the line at those nodes that you're creating. So it is still a very useful functionality that is in addition to what we had in the panels. The next one is the um, extraction of the nodes or points on the lines and surfaces. So you can see here we are extracting points. Earlier I showed nodes. So again, the logic is same, but now here we are creating points which are free points. There's another small functionality that was there in the panels is that we could extract nodes on points. So here you can see on the left, we are actually selecting nodes to create points, and on the right we have points where we are creating nodes. So we added both ways functionality, so it is easier for the users to either create points on the existing node sets or create nodes on existing points. So we are a little bit enhanced this by just not providing only nodes but also points. The next one is the parametric extraction of the lines on the surfaces. So this was one of the functionalities in the lines panel where you could select a surface, the U and V bounds, and a number of lines along U and V. So we have added that functionality. So all the U and V bounds are a part of the guide bar, and in the micro dialog you can select number of lines that you want along U and V. The addition to the panels is that we can also auto imprint. So if you have auto imprint on, we can actually imprint those lines on that surfaces. So it is very a nice functionality and very handy. On the line side, we also had um, people have also requested arc creation. Earlier, we used to just create a circle and then trim the circle to create arc, but we added now arc functionality where you can select 3 nodes, or you can select just like circle, like center and radius, and you can give an angle. You can also trim it if it's on the surface, and you can fill it. We are also will be enhancing this fill option for the arcs to fill up it as a pie and not just the line ends like now it is showing. So you can actually get a pie of the circle as it's shown in the preview. So this is also one of the functionalities from the panels that we have migrated that was requested. This is a very basic functionality on the polyline side where you could select structural nodes using path. So we could do this using just the location selector interactively, but now if you have a structural mesh and you want to create polyline on top of it, you can easily select nodes by path and create polyline on it. Also from the pillar surface or 2D, spline, we have added under surface context as spline. There are different methods, lines, nodes, and points, as you can see on the GIF files. The top left, by selecting cloud points, we can select create a surface. On the right side, on the top, selecting just the node. We can select all the nodes and then create a reference surface. You can also select nodes in an order. On the bottom left corner, you can see that's how the surface would be created, and the surface creation is also depending on how you pick the nodes, as it is shown also in the GIF file. And on the bottom right, by just selecting lines, you could create spline between these. We will be supporting the create mesh option in the following version, but for now we have just added a support of creation of the surfaces or the geometry. The create mesh options for the other geometry tools have been added, which what we used to see in the panels as, surface only, or, mesh, and or create surfaces along with mesh. So that option has been added as an anchor item to patch, skin, ruled, drag, and spin. So you can see that you can basically select, you can give your input, and as long as the create mesh check option is on, here is an example here that I'm showing for drag context, where you are actually creating a surface. Once this create mesh is checked on, it takes you to the meshing panel, or the secondary context of the meshing, which is the density and biasing and phase edit. Once you can make changes, any time of exiting of this context will take you back to the original geometry context that it was coming from. So it's very easy for the users to create a geometry, create mesh on top of it, and then edit that mesh and come back to the geometry context for further modifications. So this is about the create mesh option. We have added create ribs as well as one of the controllers under geometry create menu, um, and all the options are supported here. Now I'll hand over to Salim to take us to the meshing part.
Thank you, Pritam. Hi all, my name is Salim. I'll be discussing more on the developments in meshing in 2022.3. As it was said, we have been working more on the panel migrations and performance. I'll also be talking more on the some of the enhancements that we made with respect to FE geometry, especially when creating of FE geometry on duplication of elements. So I'm going to talk more on that. So let me just go ahead. So one enhancement or one improvement that we have made based on the feedback that we got is FE geometry creations. So now we do not create FE geometry by default. So if your input is if the input is FE geometry, we always create FE geometry as the output when we are duplicating the elements. If our input is the orphan mesh, we create orphan mesh as the output. You know as the default. Yeah, so if your input is FE geometry and orphan mesh, the output will not be changed. But if the input is CAD plus mesh and we are duplicating elements of elements that are associated to CAD, now we have an option whether to create orphan mesh or FE geometry. So by default, we create orphan mesh. If I go to my next slide, so here I explain how can we control the FE geometry creation on duplication of elements that are associated to CAD. Right, we have added one option in the preference under meshing called create FE geometry when duplicating elements. So this works only for the elements that are associated to CAD. For an example, this one where my elements are associated to CAD. Now I am duplicating some of I'm duplicating these elements. Now I have an option whether to create FE geometry or orphan mesh. So by default, this option is turned off, which means if I am duplicating these elements, I'll be creating orphan mesh. And if it is turned on, then I'll be creating FE geometry. So I'm gonna quickly demo this. And this duplication is, if we are duplicating in transformation tool or reflect, or it can also be organizing tool where we copy some elements to a different component and all of that. So this option will obey to this preference here. So apart from that, we have also migrated some of the panels to the ribbons, pull down ribbons that we call as controllers. The shrink wrap is moved from panel to the controller. Now, if you type in or search shrink wrap, it might not show you the panel, but it might direct you to the controller here under 2D mesh. So we have also migrated ACM acoustic cavity meshing. This is under 3D pull down. So I can just pull down there and it will show me acoustic cavity. So as soon as I click that, so it will bring me this controller where I can select my components and define my parameters to generate the mesh, and then I can go from that. So again, the search is also when we type in and search it, it will not point us to the panels, rather it will point to this controller. Same thing with the SPH mesh as well. So we have migrated SPH mesh under 2D mesh ribbon. So it will be a pull down again. When we pull down, it will show us the SPH controller where we can select the component and generate the SPH mesh for that. So I'm gonna quickly demo some duplication behaviors just to get handy with this, so that since we deal with this regularly with epigeometry, so we'll be aware of this. So if I come to the file preference and under meshing, here it is create epigeometry when duplicating elements, it is off by default. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use transformation tool as an example to translate these elements by duplicating them. Just to show before, I'll just select these elements, right? Now I have all mixed cases, right? This is epigeometry, this is orphan mesh, and this is cat plus mesh for me. So I'll just define the direction here, and then I'm gonna type in the magnitude and say apply. Right now, this has been duplicated as epigeometry. As we discussed earlier, if the input is epigeometry, it's always going to create epigeometry for us. And if the input is orphan mesh, it is always going to create orphan mesh for us. Now, this is cat plus mesh, right? So now this depends on the preference as we spoke. So now the preference was off, so it created us the orphan mesh. Now I'll just do an undo of this, and I'll go to meshing preferences, so that I can turn on this option and say apply. Now, if I apply this, you can see for cat plus mesh elements, it is created epigeometry. So now we have much control on how we create the epigeometry on duplication of elements. So if user does not has any of the orphan mesh as his, any of the epigeometry as his input, so there's no epigeometry output for him by default. So this is regarding the epigeometry creation on duplication of elements. I'll just quickly go to the other three items that we discussed on the panel migration. One, as I spoke, acoustic cavity meshing. So on the pull down, you'll get this controller where you could select your structure, or you can select seat, type in values like what is the target mesh that is expected, and the max size and frequency changes when we change the max size, and the mean size I can define. I can give preview for this, so it will generate the cavity for us, and then I can mesh that. So this is regarding the acoustic cavity meshing, right? So I can just I'll just for now delete this, so that I can show something on string wrap on the same model. I can pick the component from the if I go to 2D mesh drop down, I can find string wrap. I can select this. I'm just going to go with the default parameters now. I can change, patch hole I can define, and feature edges I can define. If I want to create solid along with, wrapping the mesh, I can do that, and then I can simply mesh that. So it is going to create a wrap. So these methods can also be changed, whether I want right wrap, loose wrap, and all of those parameters can be defined. So I'm just gonna close this, and now I'll go to SPH meshing. I can select this, and yeah, I can, with the default values, I can mesh the solid and generate. Yeah, so create a new component, because there's no current component as such. I can create the SPH mesh with a new component here. So now the SPH mesh is created for that solid. So yeah, so these are some of the developments that we have made on the meshing. Yeah, I'll hand over to Ishwan to discuss more on edit elements.
Thank you, Sally. Hi all, I'm Yashwant Patil. I am part of MeshJom team, and today I'll discuss about Align tool and some of the enhancement made with Align tool is also part of panel migration stuff. So whatever earlier you used to do with F7 and Shift F7 and project panel, all of that could be done with this new context. So the first one in the context is like align to line you can do, and then you can do a remap also on top of that, and you can also do a offset on top of that, and it also covers all the remap capabilities and plus ability to align between nodes and reference nodes. So I'll briefly show the demo going forward, but before that I just want to show some of the highlight of align to line. If you see the in the left image, source are node list, and then target is line. You could do normal to target projection direction. In the right side, with where you can define your custom direction to um, projection. So if I go to the next one, this is more of aligning node with respect to reference nodes. In the first scenario, where you are using use end node means basically it would select it would consider start and end node as a reference, and it draws a infinite straight line and quickly aligns all the nodes which are deviating from that infinite line. So in the right side, if you could see that the nodes not in a same line or direction. So in this case, user need not select the use end nodes. He can go ahead and define a couple of nodes as a reference, which are good, which are on pretty much on topology line or pretty much aligned to your um, where we can other nodes can be aligned. So and the furthermore, if you see that like in the left side where source nodes are pretty much deviated, but mainly happens due to the weld line or some other remesh cases and all. So not just align with respect to target, it also takes offset input. If you see that I have given the offset value of 20 so that it projects and also do a remap or align all together. So you can see that. And also the last one is related to remap. In case of line, you can quickly project and do a remap over the line length. If you don't have line length, you could also select use end nodes, or you can say that like select the source nodes and use the checkbox to in the target and do a remap, quick remap you can do. So moving to the next one. So these above use cases are all about align to line between reference nodes, remap, project, and all of that. So the next one is align to surface. In this case, user can select source as a elements, points, lines, all of those nodes, and in the target, user can define multiple surfaces. In this case, you can see that underneath surface is multiple surfaces and having different normal direction, where I'm defining the custom direction to project so that all the nodes or elements can be projected onto the multiple surfaces. So similar to that, we do have align to plane capability, wherein user can select source as a nodes elements, points, and all of that, and then define a plane. And in the plane also, plane can be quickly aligned to different angle or local axis and all of that, and then projection can be done. So what I will do is I will quickly show the demo of same. in little bit more details. So the tool is, new context is implemented under elements align next to the normal context, or else if you are in this one, so like previously we used to have F7 use the shortcut key, same has been mapped to this tool. Shift and Shift F7 both are both would take you to the same tool. So in this case, let's say I start with align to line. So let's say in this case you have these source nodes. I have selected nodes by path, and then in the target I am defining a line where I can align my nodes. So this first option is normal to target. If you go for the next option, which is remap, basically it remaps over the length of line. So first one I will show in the first thing, and then and this is the first thing. But let's say you have um, circular path or cylindrical or smooth line needs to be projected, nodes needs to be projected on a smooth profile, and not always will have user will have the straight line. In such cases, user can go ahead and select all these source nodes. Let's say these are your source nodes, and in the target we not only provide line, we also provide node list, location, and AP edges. Let's say in this case I can use node list. So let me pick this. As you go on to define select your target nodes, tool itself does the smooth line draw, fitting those all three lines nodes, and then it projects. So also, like let's say in this case you have some of the nodes disturbed where they are not equally placed. In such cases also you can use this tool, and you can select these nodes, and either you can go with end nodes, since first and last node can be used as a reference. You can also do a remap of them so that you get all of this. So another case where you can user can utilize end nodes is like in this region where you just pick these nodes, and since it is already checked use end nodes, you get this option, and you can just do a projection of that nodes. So these are some of the use cases. So if I'll go, I will move on to the next example to show some of the F7 use cases classic panel used to do the align panel. So let's say you in this scenario, if you look at the nodes, there are nodes which are deviating from top, and some portion they are deviating from top. In such cases, user can select all these nodes as a source. In the target, user can pick couple of nodes which are better positioned on the profile. So you can select them, and then you can just do a align. So this is a classic align use case. So moving on to the next use case wherein you might need a align tool. So let's say in this case you have multiple nodes where some of the nodes you can use. In this case, I know the start and end nodes are pretty much a reference for me. I can go with use end nodes, and I can quickly align. And also I can just select these nodes simultaneously. I can define a remap as well so that it gets properly aligned. Also nodes which are deviating from the plane or something like this, all of those can be corrected using use end node and this thing. And also it is not necessary to always use end node. You can go ahead and define your target nodes, or you can use a location entity to define your where nodes are not present or lines are not present. In such cases, location can be used. So moving on to the next set of use cases where I have. So let's say in this case, you have some of the nodes disturbed due to weld line or connector realization or remesh. In such cases, we can leverage align plus offset. In the target, you could either select nodes, or since I have line, I will select line. And then instead of remap, I will enable my offset value, where in this case, let's say it is 20. So I enter 20 value and then define remap so that all of them can be projected and aligned nicely so that it captures profile as well. So with this, if I move on to the next set of use cases, okay, probably I'll move to the next series. So all about line I talked about. Now I'll a little bit talk about surface and plane. In the surface, let's say in the source you have nodes, lines, points, all of these selection can be made. So in this case, I'm making the selection of elements by set. So basically all these elements I have selected as my source. In the target, you can select all the surfaces, not just one. There is no restriction to select a single. So once you select, you have projection normal direction. So if you see the preview is coming here, so all of them can be done. And one more thing to note is in case of larger models, you can preview can be off, made off, which is optional completely. So you can define and you can project all of those. So you can see all of the elements are projected on multiple surfaces. Similar to this, you can also do with the same thing with the plane, but in the plane, surface might have curvature and convexity and all of that. Surface might carry the profile, but in case of plane, you can quickly select all these elements and you can just define your plane. Plane can be quickly aligned holding your control button and clicking on it. So first 3 clicks are to basically align your plane manipulator. You can see that, and you can just align. Those all got projected or aligned to a plane where thing was there. So yeah, that's all for the align tool. I'll go back to the presentation again. So in the edit element, I'll talk about some of the enhancements, or mainly this time focus was to enhance our performance. If you see below chart, wherein you can see that the performance has been computed. One of the this performance data shows on one of the customer model, wherein session had 12 plus million elements and other connector and other data, wherein we had this conventional issue with when we are in QI mode with edit element. We had tools were becoming very expensive and operations were pretty slow. But with this new version, we have made the QI color mode optional, and then default it is off. So if somebody wants to work in QI color mode, they have to access the hamburger menu and then make the flag on. And if you look at the data, wherein earlier it used to take splitting up a single element used to take 36 seconds for the model having considerable elements visible in the graphics and loaded in the session, but now that has been reduced to significantly reduced, and there is no problem with small and medium model, but only these performance bottlenecks were seen for the larger models having a lot of assemblies and things like that. So now with newer versions, it is much faster and reliable. So, and also in the split context, earlier we missed to add a support for the 1D and joint element. Now those can be 1D standalone 1D or attached to 2D elements can be selected, and those can be split irrespective of its config and all of that. So with this, I come to conclusion. Thank you all. I hand over to Tim.
Thanks, Yashwant. So as Salim was mentioning earlier with this copy paste stuff, just to reinforce some of this, is if you do copy a surface, a CAD surface with elements, you will end up with still with a CAD surface plus elements. It's just the mixed cases where unexpectedly in previous versions you ended up with FE geometry, you now no longer end up with FE geometry. So it's just a bit clearer now from that perspective. Right. So I'm going to jump into morphing and just cover the morph panel migrations that we have been working on for the last couple of releases. This is predominantly removing a lot of the domain and handle based morphing that has been and like map to geometry, and all of the options now into more generic controllers as well as into the preferences. So the first thing we've managed to migrate is all of the morphing options are now available from the preferences. If you're in the ribbon, you can access the preferences directly via the options, but all of the options are now directly available in the preferences. So it's standardization of the parameters. The next is all of the, as I said earlier, the domain-based panel migration is now again available directly under Morph. You've got symmetries, domains, handle, sculpting, alter dimensions, and map to geometry. Most of the functionalities for these have been mapped. We know there's still some outstanding panel migrations that you can still access within the Hypermorph panel. These were deemed to be the highest of importance, so these are the ones we addressed first. All of the move tools, domain morphing as well as handle morphing is available directly in FreeMorph. Again, historically they had their own panel. That panel is now gone, so you can do whatever you need to do directly within domain and handle based morphing. The move tool, shape, reflect, all now works on shapes and morph volumes. So you can, the generic manipulators are now available for all of these tools. Historically in Hypermorph, they had their own specific location. These have now been put into the general access areas. So for a quick demo, if I go into Morph, I'm going to just quickly generate a shape morph. Quick morph of this panel, create a shape. If I go to move, we've got shapes. You can select the shape and effectively it duplicates the shape. So you've got the option that again historically was available in the panel where you can apply, you can create, you can append, all of these things. You can scale. All of these are now directly available in move. Same for mirror. If we go to shape, we can mirror a given shape across a plane. So in this case, we're just going to select a plane and the mirror, and we can see the shape has been reflected. So again, all of these sat within the panels. They're now directly accessible within the context where you'd expect to find them for all of the other entities. So it's a bit more accessible and a bit more direct. Same thing for symmetries. Again, the panel's exactly the same mapping as what historically was in the panel is now just directly available via a controller. The remaining panels haven't been migrated. From a Hypermorph perspective, some of the functions are still here. So convert, order shape, some of the morph volume stuff, save, load, that sort of stuff, convert. That's still yet to be migrated. Update for domains is yet to be migrated, and set biasing for the handles is yet to be migrated. Those remaining migrations will happen over the next release, and then hopefully the 16 panel deep morph options should now be directly accessible. And then going forward, we can start actually trying to plan to make the morph entities more generic. So entity editor support, better browser support, the ability to edit rules and selections and that sort of stuff. So currently that's not necessarily strictly easy with the current morph capability. So something we're looking to expand and build on for the future. And I think that just about wraps us up. Thank you very much.